This is day 203 of the Arukh HaShulchan OC. If you'd like to sponsor upcoming Shiv the Arukh HaShulchan OC, it would be very much appreciated. Please contact me directly. Today, we are starting Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, a whole new section. And we are doing today in Hilchos Beis HaKnesses, the Siman Kuf Nun, Sif Aleph to Sif Zayin. Chiv Limos Beis HaKnesses, Shekol Gavor Mikol Batim. The application build a shul, and that should be higher than all other houses. Aleph, Kovim Bnei Ir Zeh Limos Beis HaKnesses. The inhabitants of the city can compel each other to build a shul. Because I'm turning being sued by the turning being sued, which means at the time Klaf. Now it's shifted a little bit. So now the required form, of course, the Tanakh, but not necessarily in the written, the Nach, not necessarily in the written form, except for the place where the Makir and that for the Haftorah. But now, Mishnayos, Gemara, Shulchan Aruch, and other compelled necessary Sforim, one is compelled to buy, one can compel each other to buy. Mishnah Berurah says if they're prevalent in private houses, you don't have to buy specifically for the tzibur. Back to Arukh HaShulchan, Varbiyanos de B'chol Shemishn Tzim Kub Samagim Ayin Sham. But nearly the Afili Yesh Lehem Makom Lispal B'Minyan Shesochim by Lispal. Even they have a place to daven. They rent a house where they daven. Mikom Kol Neblas Imatzabam Moreh. If their status, in other words, their means, financial means, are indicated, she becholtem most basic classes, they can build a shul. Yichayim Makub Zed they can compel each other to participate. Application basic Knesses echad, but when they already have one shul, echad lakub zeh knows basic Knesses, they can't build each other to build another shul. After we should silent, even though the first one is overflowing. The kol echad yechol maladidi dies basic Knesses. Each one could say could be daich the other and say, for me this shul is enough. V'im basic Knesses tzarich tikun echad the shul needs essential repairs. Such as rain drips through, only slim or the walls are ruined, etc. They can compel each other, she do most to give money to fix it. But just to make it more aesthetically pleasing, nearly they can't compel each other. And one guy says it's compelling, compelling need, it's a necessary need, the other says not such a necessary need. And totally Brias and Basin has to make a decision on that in that case. The Be'er Locha writes that if it's also true if the tzibur doesn't have enough room to learn, that such as the Beis HaKnesses is tight, they can compel each other to build a Beis Medrash. And I guess the Beis Medrash, it sounds in Mishnah Berurah you can compel, even though you can't compel building another shul. Perhaps you can compel a Beis Medrash because the davening people maybe can squeeze together, but learning requires more harchavas hadas, perhaps. Beis. Beis HaKnesses is going to be mama. Really for the nefashos, it's a progressive tax. It's you collect according to each person's means. But when you rent out a place of davening, it's a regressive tax. It's per person, regardless of their means. There's those who say we divide half. Half is collected based on assessment of capability, and the other half is by numbers. Saying according to the meaning in our countries, we sell places in shul. Cloud is not relevant. Those kids they make a set price for all the places. In other words, I guess there are different prices for different, like a sports stadium, different prices for being close to the action, further from the action. So everybody will pay according to their price level. The Mishnah Berurah writes that the poskim say that in building the shul, you collect according to means, only according to means. But by renting, it's half according to means and half according to number. Okay, back to Arukh HaShulchan. The cases Hamkomas also pre-based in, and the allocation of places should be done at pre-based in if they can't agree among themselves. The also when fixing the shul, they should pay according to their seats. And and this abides are minted by them. Indeed, that there was pricing by tiers, staggered pricing. The Mekoy Mizrachi in the places near the eastern wall, they pay more. Each person plays according to the value of his place. I'm not sure that's prevalent nowadays. Based on Knesses, a man which is a disagreement in the shul, if they should sell the aliyos, in lav or not, or could be shots, or who to hire for shul or b'shari had hogos or other byways, hotels based on Knesses, and expenditures of the shul. They can't agree, come to a consensus. Yismoch ala beistin. They should have the beistin. They should pass according to the proper halacha. Chashimitzim mekuf samgil b'yar od binyanim elu ayin sham. Lel siman nun hein is ba'er. K'she'ei minyan tummy based on Knesses. When there is no the minyan is spotty. There isn't always a minyan in shul. Klavin says knossos. You can compel each other and levy fines. You tell me I start to make sure always 10. But they're not. It's not realistic because they're too few Jews. Ain't claiming the score last game. Minyan, we don't compel people to pay in to complete the minyan. Rak be yamim no roim. Ayin sham just on yamim no roim. Not the rest of the year. Kimmel Isa b'Shabbos Kol Yisrael go seg boim basic Knesses. L'sov Chorva, any city which the roofs of the houses are higher than the shul, eventually will be destroyed. Shneimah says, Romemus based Hashem L'kein Lamid Chorva Sov, to uplift the house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and to rebuild its ruins. You only build a shul at the height of the city. Shneimah Barosh Homios Tikra, at the top. There you should call out with your earnest prayers. In other words, to build a place where the land is high. And then even the building itself is not so tall. Because it's a high place. But they're here. Automatically it's higher than the other places else in the city. It's only places which they use. A place which are there for natural barnios are, but I assume it's similar to Migdalim. In other words, large, high structures, but which are more ornamental and practical, such as the Space Needle in Seattle or the CN Tower in Toronto or other places of that sort. Similar to Ba'alma, they're really just decorative, and they're not made for use, even though they're tourist trap, but they're not made for intrinsic use. Mutter, that doesn't count. That's what it says. Dal. When we send before they not time they are covered levad. So from this we can see it's not just because of cover. Klamar. Well, being they are covered. Shetei based on that says kavon become beyond him share that it should be higher than all the building in the city. Can la mucho bernios ubir. Why are these ornamental buildings allowed to exceed the height of the shul? So he says, a fascinating reason, that the person is standing on the roof of his house and using it, won't stand higher than the roof of the shul. Nice deal. Any city where the roofs are higher, their roofs were flat, they would use the roofs. And therefore, in truth, the begagim shalonu on our roofs which are not flat, one which is angled, and not suitable for use. The shul only has to be higher than the place on the roof which is suitable for use. And if there is a second floor underneath the roof, so then, that second floor, or higher floor, should not be higher than the shul. This is more than any time base HaKnesses. According to this, interestingly enough, it comes that you're not supposed to use the second floor of a shul. Obviously, that's not, kind of like an attic, more than the second floor. Hey, man. We'll see in Simon Kufnun Aleph, Stephen Tesvav Design. Hey, Benino and his idea, the Ramba de Acheres, the Ramba has different opinion. B'Zel Shalom, Perek B'Reish, Perek Rav Mitfila. Kshabonim Beis HaKnesset, you build a shul, Ein Bonim, El Begov Hashel, you only build the higher spot in the city. Magbino Sachet Gavon, Mikol, Chatzro Soyer. Wow. It's be higher than all the courtyards in the city. Akal Shalom. V'Shina Miloshim Gagos Chatzeros. Why change from roofs to yards? Also, he left out the heter for Birnios and towers. Lashon Gemara kachu, and the language of Gemara is like this: houses have to be lower than the shuls. What a kishkushe navruye. But Rashi piers kishkushe vavruye Birnios umigdalim. The story about these ornamental buildings. That's Rosh also. That's why he was marking our roofs, which are not flat. There's a different interpretation of Gemara. It's the wall of the city. Abrui is the wall of the city, which is also a kishkush, and kishkush and avrui the same thing, and they both refer to the wall of the city. So it's not referring to the houses in the city, but rather to the wall surrounding the city. That's why he removed this. Since I'm not sure it's not shaykh by us. Back then the walled cities were walled. So I'm not sure. Maybe it was all the walls were lower than the height of the shuls. I don't know why it's not shaykh unless at the time of Arukh HaShulchan mamish, in which case the cities had already outgrown the walls. Abukami binyan asur. But any type of building, it's also that should be higher than the shul. But then they are covered, and this is reasons only because of covered. That has to be higher than all the structures in the city. Because of Chatzos, that's he wrote the courtyards of the city. Gagos, and not the roofs. She had time mipnei tashmish, because the roofs would be because of tashmish. He writes the way the Arukh is learning, which is a little bit difficult for me, is that the Rambam used the word chatzeros to bavor, to preempt your thought that it might be specifically because the gagos are shaykh to tashmishim, and that the gagos, which are rather tashmish, have to be lower than the shul. But anything which is not really tashmish, like the migdal and birnios, and like our roofs, it's not a problem. But so that's how he changed the chatzeros to tell us that, and let's bring that heter biryonas and migdalim, because he's saying no, it's nothing to do with roof and using the roof. It has to do with buildings. So therefore, that's why he wrote the word chatzeros. But again, I'm not sure how he learned it out from the word chatzeros. It's difficult for me to understand how you get it from there. I looked at the Rambam inside. It could be that what it means like this. It's Magil Samich Kol Chatzos Sa'ir means it should be on a higher level, up the mountain, than any courtyard in the city, meaning than any other level in the city. And that also includes the buildings on the Chatzeros. In other words, the place where it's built has to be highest in the city, and then Mimela, it's going to be higher than everything else in the city. It's still difficult to me. Okay. Vav, Misha be a basic, Yosef basic Nesses. Somebody built his house higher than a shul. Some say you make him lower his house. I mean, the Perish Rashi, Mashi, Dafka, Chatchila, Tzarchamono. Sounds like Rashi, only the Chatchila, you have to prevent him from doing so. But the Evid, if he built the rate, ain't Kovin Lashpil, he doesn't have to lower it. Kasar Rabbi Rambam, see, Himalim, Asa, Binyan, Gavoa, Yoser, Bekaren, Echad, Miyabesa, Knesses. If you made one like structure in the shul higher, like the lightning rod or one pillar, or if it's a mosque, we'd say the minaret. That's good enough. Sagi b'kach, akal shol. Kamar, feeling magova eno al kol beis hakneses. It's only not in the whole shul. Tzad echad mutar. One, even one side, it's okay. Dafka b'binyan mamish gigag oliyah. So he says no, not the lightning rod, not the minaret. It has to be some literally part of the structure, which serves the structure, like a roof or attic. But just put a post there, and a clue. That's useless. Nearly times the way but taking the Shlono seem some gavoar beba emtza. Many of our shuls we make them high in the middle with a dome of some sort. For local base has not the whole shul, but that's what should be higher than the rest of the city. Today, you should know the bebate midrashim lekodin zeh. This law does not apply to bebate medrash. I saw, by the way, I was just looking at the Rambam. Rabbeinu Monach says part of gavoa means that the inside should be higher, because the ceiling should be higher than any other building in the city, and that makes sense because that gives the sense of awe and reverence the higher the ceiling is. So that's an interesting spin on this halacha. In any event, it says again, da both the midrashim lekodin zeh. Can a minute the basic knesses osin gavoa arbei below base medrash, and that's the minute shuls are made high, but not by the medrash. V'avgav the kind of kedusha space of medrash going to kedusha space of knesses. High, we all the kedusha of a base medrash is higher than a shul. Because nevertheless, in the base of knesses, in terms of this, a base knesses shul magon tefillah kol ear, place of davening for everybody. Chom or tvei, it's more significant. The argosha nearest yosef base of knesses mi base of medrash. The impact of the atmosphere is more important and is more greater in a shul than in a base medrash. Interesting. Because the simcha means they have to be in a certain proper frame of mind, which comes from the shul being lofty. He says in the brackets, in a difficult situation, or they don't allow you to build a shul in the highest building. Allowed to now they don't really allowed to build a shul at all, not just not a higher shul. So you're allowed to have in a house, even though people live in the second floor, higher floor is al-gabov. They have to be clean upstairs. What that means, and now people are not nizar because it's simply not realistic to make our shuls so high because we have such high skyscrapers and high-rise buildings. So I saw in the also in Rabbi Menach, I think it was, I looked over here, that there's a minhag nowadays to actually build the Beis HaKnesses in the lowest place. I guess because of humility, in the lowest place in the city. Actually, no. Roma comes to so leave no space like Knesset. B'shvala here, lowest part of the city. After shenit kan zeh b'gos, could be that kind of ghost. Because of our wicked neighbors. Ulai kanuba, because maybe they'll be jealous of us. Beis Lashem, so Lashem, a fair Torah. Okay, and so when you saw Shrimad Masam, then it has to be the highest building, because then we're not concerned. Okay. Zayin. B'chai shemitzvah simin kuf nun down in his buyer. The abundant connected chalon shechavero. If you build opposite your friend's window, so achik arb amos. You have this is your wall 4 amos. Shalafi 11 nor not the darkest window. I am sham. Uvedal amos die. It's not 4 amos. Abundant connected chalon based on knesset based on medrash where we need a lot of light. It must be l'chakos arb amos. It's not good enough. Fishu tzarich or gadol. Tzarich l'archik arbe kefi shishar or kmikerem. He has to distance himself further, so the light should remain as light as was before, which the Mishnah Berurah says is at least 8 amos. No, he says 8 amos Vadai Saga, 8 amos is for sure enough. But it says here in the it's not like no worse than Achsadra, which is an open room, which needs a lot of light. But that's when the tzibur was established chazak and having windows. before somebody else built there. Yachi yachal liftach and also chatzar basic classes. But Yachi can open his windows to the courtyard of the shul. Because it's not a private place. So no issue of Hezekriya. Became a Shumakim Gdisla Rabim. So it's a place where many people go through. It's like an open street. She'ain bo Hezekriya, where there's no damage by being able to look in. But the tibur of the shul should not open windows into the courtyard of individuals. The Moshe Ratzin says, if the individual is not going to suffer so much, he should do lifnei mishras adin and let the shul do what they need to do. But everything is relative to the time and place. Back on Rishon, but if the Chatzar Beis Knesses is a place not revealed to everybody, it's not open, and sometimes it's used for private things. They can also protest an individual opening his windows to that direction. But one has to be careful. When you're allowed to open windows, that you shouldn't get a chazaka in this. So that the other person or other entity will now not be able to build opposite his windows when they need it. And the truth is that he doesn't have a chazaka. She said right now it's like kofin and minas stone. They're not suffering. They didn't have to build there, so therefore they can't protest. But if they had the original rights there, when they would need to build it, they can make his windows dark because they're just capitalizing on the privilege which they had to surrender temporarily. Mishbura says that which Yochid can open his windows is specifically place where Rabbim cannot build ever, but otherwise they can be moicha. So according to Arukh HaShulchan, this is not true. You can never. We don't let you put windows there. Period. Arukh HaShulchan, we let you put windows there until such time as if and when we need it. But according to Mishbur, never let you have windows. But in any event, according to Arukh HaShulchan, how do you not establish chazaka? Because we said pinkas l'zikaron. They should write this in a memorandum in the town ledger in order to recall that this granting of the permission of windows was only a temporary measure, not a permanent measure. Okay, that is our start on Hilchos Beis HaKnesses.